The truth. So, listen to Mandy, right? Pay attention, because it could be your son, daughter, niece or nephew next with the paedophiles.
Hi Glasgow, I'm Mandy and I've created a group and it's called Expose Scotland. Now, with Expose Scotland we support survivors. I don't know if Scotland's aware of the people in the city today that there's a Scottish child abuse inquiry. Every single institution in Scotland's been investigated and found guilty of raping, murdering, abusing sons and daughters, as well as burying them in unmarked graves across our country. As well as raising awareness about the child trafficking and the exploitation of our children, we also support survivors and victims and give out information booklets in the dangers to your children in Scotland. Now, Scotland has a real danger at the moment. I've got some pictures up here for anybody that wants to look. So what you'll see here is, there's some pictures here. This is a new school curriculum for your children from 3 years old. It's called Relationship and Sexual Health and Parenthood in Glasgow in Scotland. And it's a new global sex education programme designed at sexualising your children from 3 years old. Here is some of the handouts and some of the things that your children will be shown. So this is it here on your curriculum. It's Relationship, Sexual Health and Parenthood. In this programme your children will be shown, I don't really want to read them out because there's children about, but this is for primary 4 children, so what you're saying, 8 and 9 years old. They'll be taught about couples, same-sex couples. They'll be taught about how it feels to have sex, what you actually do to have sex, instructions, this will be put up on a board. Some pictures I can't even show you because I feel like they're pornographic, but this is your children's sex education programme in Scotland, guys. It is absolutely horrific. It is designed at sexualising your children from 3 years old. There's no safeguarding. The parents aren't even aware that it's being taught to your children. And it brings in, there's a load of stuff that comes with it. There's a serious safeguarding issue in Scotland. The Scottish Government ought to be ashamed of themselves. They're doing absolutely nothing to protect our children in Scotland. Nothing at all. The children in Scotland are in real danger at the moment. They're not getting mental health support for the pandemic they went through. They're getting cast aside. Nobody's listened to them. Although we've been through a pandemic, we're going to have a bigger pandemic with mental health in our youths and our young people, because nobody's looking after them, nobody's giving them a life, and nobody is protecting them. And like I said, Scotland has now brought in, well, we were all in lockdown, Scotland brought in a global sex education programme. You need to do your research on this sex education programme. It was created in 2009, and all the global leaders worldwide sat round a table and they decided that they would bring this global sex education programme. Your government made deals with world leaders in the EU, and some countries get threatened with their foreign aid getting pulled if they didn't accept this global sex education programme. So this was 11 years ago. They had until 2020 to implement it. We still hadn't implemented it in Scotland last year, and we went into lockdown. While we were in lockdown, governments across the country were implementing this sex education programme into all subjects in your school, designed to sexualise children from 3 years old. Now, this sex education programme is really sinister. We are really worried, and we need to take our government, our Scottish Government, to court. As I don't know if some of the parents have probably seen, they've also done an online survey, a questionnaire for children from primary 5, which is 9 and 10. Now, on this online survey and questionnaire online that's getting sent to your children, they're getting asked intimate questions like, now, is this appropriate for a 9-year-old? The Scottish Government are asking them online if they've ever done no sex. They're asking them how many times have they done no sex, if they've ever had oral sex. Now, this is an online questionnaire and there's serious safeguarding issues. No one knows who can access this information that your children are being asked and put into a computer system. No one's even getting told, and the parents aren't getting asked for consent. But the Scottish Government are seriously putting your children at risk. They're putting your children at risk to dangers, they're making them vulnerable. they're making them vulnerable to stuff they don't understand, so they're making them vulnerable to sex offenders without even realising it. So this sex education programme will come into your nursery schools, and it starts with telling your children the appropriate words for their private parts. That also brings curiosity. Then in primary 5 they get told how babies are made and how sex. So I had a child the other week asking her grandparents at 5 years old, Gran and Papa, how many times have you had sex? And they were like, none, we don't do that stuff. And they were like, she was like, Gran, you've got my uncle and my aunt and my mum, you've had sex at least 3 times. Now that's a 5-year-old putting their grandparents on the spot, and it's just came in September. This is sinister, guys. The Scottish Government, I've got a newspaper article there. The Scottish Government have already made it legal for your children to change their name and their gender while in school at 4 years old, without parental consent, and they don't have to make the parents aware, and they're also allowed to choose what bathroom they want to use. So you can send Sophie into school at 4 years old, so even nursery, and Sophie can decide, because the teachers are teaching her all this stuff, that she doesn't want to be a girl, she wants to be a boy. That child has no understanding of that, no knowledge, doesn't even know what but the school monitor that, and then see come 7. If this happens, it only takes 12 months, and your child will receive sexual rights. So your child will have sexual rights over your parental rights. So then it means that if you refuse to this stuff to get taught to your children next year, your children will be safeguarded against you. Social services will be called, and your children will be removed through failing to let them learn about sex. This is how sinister this is. It also brings in, other countries have already did it. If you look at the state of America with hormone blockers and gender transformation medication, it's through this sex education programme. America brought it in 6 years ago, and the children are in crisis. The children don't even know if they're boys or they're girls. They've been on medication, they've been on hormone blockers, they've been on gender transformation medication, and this is all done in primary school without parental knowledge or consent. So if you let this come into your schools, this sex education programme, your children will receive sexual rights. It also gives the school the right to treat your children for sexually transmitted diseases without your knowledge or consent, because your children have sexual rights. So it means that if a paedophile is abusing your child, the school can deal with treating that sexually transmitted disease without the parents' knowledge or consent. Also at 7 years old, if the child is persistent in being a girl and they want to change to a boy, it gives the school permission to start prescribing your child medication, hormone blockers, without your knowledge or consent. So you don't even know your child's on gender transformation medication. How can that possibly be normal? So, like, they're confusing. The Scottish Government are corrupting the minds of every one of your children now. They're sexualising them at an alarming rate, and everybody's too distracted with COVID and stuff to understand what's actually happening in the background with your children is sinister. There's nobody protecting them, there's nobody safeguarding them. The sex education programme, it's down to the head teachers, and it's by law mandatory got to be implemented for February 2022. So if you haven't heard about it yet, come February 2022 you will have heard about all your children coming home talking about sex from 5 years old. You won't have any opt-out if you allow this to go ahead, and that's why we are desperate just now. Wales have already lost their parental rights. Their children have got sexual rights in Wales. They're in courts with their government at the moment. Scotland, we're a year behind. We have time. If we can get enough letters and stuff into the schools just now, we can stop this. We can put an end to this, and we can not allow our children to have sexual rights. Now, a lot of people don't understand what this programme involves, but if you go and research the stuff, I've showed you what they'll be showing your children. This stuff that's on this fence here is for children from primary 4. So if in primary 4 your children are getting taught how to have sex, who to have it with, it's okay to have it with 2 men to have sex, it's okay for 2 women to have sex. Now bearing in mind your child's only 9 years old, like they've still got an imagination, they don't have feelings yet, they don't understand any of this. It's corrupting the minds of your children. Our children are being corrupted across the whole of Scotland, and nobody's even aware of it. You're only safeguarding your children as parents, you're only asking the questions you should be. And the children in Scotland's in serious danger of the Scottish Government. We need to take our Scottish Government down. Our Scottish Government are paedophiles. There's a paedophile ring within the Scottish Government, within the legal and the justice system and the legal society, and that is why they're making all these laws and legislations without your consent, and they're taking your parental rights away from you because they do plan to remove your children. Don't be under any illusion that anybody's safe from this. There's now 2 ways the Scottish Government have legislated and made it possible to remove your children from you. One is to send all the teachers from primary schools, secondary schools, colleges and universities on a safeguarding course, and it's to spot activist children in school. They have to take your children aside in any education institution and ask them if there's any problems in the home, because we've been through a pandemic. As your mum and dad get differences of opinions about masks, then you'll receive a social worker. If your children are at college or university, you'll receive a community psychiatric nurse to assess if you're sound mind. And they can remove your children for that if you don't agree to vaccines and masks. Now there's going to be this as well. They'll also be able to remove your children if you refuse the sex education programme. They'll be able to take your children off you. Parents in Scotland have no rights and are slowly losing all the rights to their children. And when social services come in and start champing your doors, you're only going to know what's hit you. People need to start paying attention. Our children in Scotland are not safe. Now, so bearing in mind, the Scottish Government makes a big deal about we have a pandemic and we have a virus spreading. Well, what about the girls that have been raped in flats across this city? Right, there's girls being trafficked and raped and exploited across this city, and they're sleeping with at least 10 men a day. Would you not say that's more of a pandemic and that's spreading? What about the viruses and the sexually transmitted diseases that's spreading in our young, and they're not even aware because they don't have medical treatment or healthcare at the moment? So what about all the unchecked sexually transmitted diseases by the rape and exploitation of your children across the last 17 months? That's got to be a health pandemic, for sure. That's got to be a much bigger health pandemic and much more spreading COVID, because these paedophiles are going unchecked. These trafficking gangs are going unchecked. They're trafficking and in contact with loads of children every day, with loads of different households, with loads of different families, but nobody seems to care about that. Nobody seems to think that's an issue at all. I don't understand why. I don't understand why you are all scared about colds and flus, and you're only scared about the fact there's children being raped, trafficked and abused across our country. And I'm going to finish up with, I'm really worried about the children in care. The children in care have been unchecked for the last 18 months. They've been locked up, caged up like animals, and they've been raped, trafficked and abused by grooming gangs and targeted by them. These children have nobody to turn to. Scotland is not protecting our children. We're doing absolutely nothing for the next generation, who are going to be the next generation of adults in this country. We're not going to be about here forever. But what about all the children we're failing to protect and are getting raped, abused and terrorised? How are they going to be as adults? They're not going to be a sound mind. The children that are getting pushed to the edge now are going to have breakdowns and start becoming violent and unruly and not listening to anybody, because it is absolutely sickening. We're in a crisis, and there's a much bigger crisis than COVID. Our future generations, our next generation of young people need help, safeguarding and protection, and nobody's doing it. Nobody's caring about them and nobody's interested.
We don't fight for our children, nobody will.
If we don't fight for our children, nobody will, because your Scottish Government are absolutely disgusting. They're failing them everywhere. They're failing families. They're failing to support anybody. And all they're interested in is taking your children and making money, if I'm being honest. They're the biggest child traffickers in all the governments across the world. The Scottish Government are child traffickers. And people need to start opening their eyes and paying attention, or else they'll have sexualised your children by this time next year. And if you don't like it, they'll just come and take them off you and put them into the system. So guys, I'm going to leave you with that. And I have loads of booklets and information. If anybody's been listening and wants any more information about what I've been speaking about, it's all there. So thanks again, guys. And I'm going to pass.